And I'll join the palms. And repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Palms down. All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for showing up. Glad you're all here. Anyone here for the first time? And yet in the front row? Usually they sit in the back so they can sneak out if they're not, What brings you here?
She brought me here.
Yeah, it's her fault.
She got me.
We know who to blame.
I do yoga. I do meditation.
Nice. Good. Well, who else? First time, what brings you here? Anybody else? Those of you who keep showing up, why keep showing up?
I haven't practiced in a little while, so I'm back to get on the path.
Yeah. Do you notice a difference when you kind of stop practicing?
Yes, definitely.
How so?
A lot more like subjective, my thoughts, like negative thoughts, just stressed in all different ways.
Yeah, definitely. Well, welcome back. Glad you're here.
Thank you.
Who else? Why show up? Why keep coming back? Yeah.
Sangha, a community of doing it together.
How does that help, you think?
Consistency for sure. I mean, I was a very regular meditator for many years and years ago, and I did it mostly alone.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more fulfilling. I don't know the right word, but it's
Sure.
just something with a community of people doing the same thing.
Yeah, understood.
This isn't my first time here, but I'm still very much a novice. I've been to a couple of lectures and a couple of the recovery meetings, but I'm really here today to learn.
Good. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to share why? Yeah.
I love coming back to the Sangha, the community, because the collective just energizes my spirit and almost like validates. I do my daily practice, but it's energetic, and the energy in the space is beautiful, and I come to like take it in, breathe it in, and go share it, not only with myself, but with those that surround me.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Anyone else want to share before we move on? Yeah.
Craving,
Craving?
stillness.
Yeah.
I haven't really tapped into doing it myself, so I'm kind of enjoying it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard when, as many of you have heard me share, if you don't have a consistent daily practice, then you don't have a consistent daily practice and you'll struggle. I mean, it's really that simple. When we stop and look at the nature of the mind is by our own doing, not so healthy and stable and settled. And when we're left to our normal routines, our normal devices, our normal ways of being, then our mind can really start to do some serious damage. So when you kind of get introduced to it, or you get around it, or maybe you've been around it and kind of fallen away a little bit, you do tend to start to see a difference of what happens when you let this mind just kind of be on its own for a while. And so, the importance of coming together in community is to remind ourselves to carry this practice outside of here. Because it's nice that you can come together once a week, twice a week, however often, you may show up here. But it's the other 5 or 6 days a week that you're not here that the problems tend to arise. For the most part, the hour that we sit here together, it's pretty kind and pretty gentle and pretty quiet. But it's not that way out there. And so the practice is to be able to cultivate the mind that just isn't disturbed. I mean, it's really that simple in theory. That's the practice, is to cultivate the mind that is not disturbed. And that's it. That's all you have to do. It's so simple, right? So we will work on cultivating a mind that is just not disturbed. For those who are joining virtually, welcome. Glad you're here. Thanks for showing up. Feel free to say hello. There's a chat box on your screen somewhere. For those who are maybe joining for the first time or sitting with me for the first time, a couple things I tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. Right? You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you are on a cushion, often it helps slide into the front third. Pushing the stomach forward allows the back to straighten. If you're on a bench or chair, however you're seated, also just trying to sit up straight. Relaxing the shoulders. Hands are on the knees or in the lap. If you need to move, simply move. Movement doesn't make you a bad meditator, it just means you need to move. And most important, especially if you're new, you're not going to empty your thoughts, you're not going to go blank, you're not going to think nothing. We're just going to sit and breathe. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. Start with taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And eventually settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice. Observing sensation of breath. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, wanting nothing but to sit and breathe. body still, resting. And the speech quiet, aware of all sounds. And the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment. It's not from anything I said. It's not from how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's not from the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samutpata, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's it. That's what we get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to every other 20-minute period of your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. So with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. It's direct perception into the present moment, and the present moment, as we know all too well, is filled with conflict, chaos, difficulty, and challenges. And so this practice is learning to be with life as it arises. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. Just sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do in every moment. That's it. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, which is where we spend so much of our time, hoping they do this, hoping they do that, wishing they would do this, wishing they would do that. So much time focused on other people's actions. This practice is looking at your own and how your thoughts, your words, and your actions create your world. And then how that impacts those around us. Very often people think, especially specifically to Buddhist practice, that it's complicated or that there's so much to learn. I confidently could teach you probably 90% of Buddhist teachings in like 20 minutes. They're very simple, very straightforward, very direct. And then you have every moment the rest of your life to practice them. So Buddhist teachings are not about what more can I learn, how much knowledge can I get, how many words can I say that come from some other language that make me sound like I know what I'm talking about. How many Pema Chodron books can I read? Right? Do I know how to say Thich Nhat Hanh? I mean that very seriously. There's this kind of thing, Chogyam Trungpa would call it spiritual materialism. It's a great book, Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism. But kind of cutting through what Western culture has done to Buddhist practice. Americans have done what they do best, made it very American. And Buddhist practice is beyond any culture whatsoever. It's an awareness, and it's a practice. So don't complicate it. So with that, I'll pause. For me, I always really prefer to respond to questions. Meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. And again, to those who are joining virtually, welcome. Glad you're here. Feel free to say hello. If you have any questions, you can put them on the chat box, and I'll do my best to respond. So we'll use the rest of our time this morning for questions.
What is the Sangha?
Yeah. So the question was, what is the Sangha? At the very beginning, we do what's called taking refuge, and we join palms, right? Or at least I join palms. I don't know if you do or not, and I don't care if you do or not. I'm facing that way, so that's up to you. But my master, she always taught with the joining of palms that it was taking all of the past, all of the future, and bringing it together in this present moment. Because this present moment is all that exists. So much of our anger, sadness, depression is in the past. So much of our stress, anxiety, fears, and worries are in the future. So the simple act of joining palms brings us to this present moment. Then the triple gem, I'll just walk through all three of them to address it. The idea behind taking refuge, we look at the word refuge, and refuge means different things to different people, but safety, comfort, protection, home, whatever refuge means to you, right? The first one is we take refuge in the Buddha. And this isn't in the Buddha himself, right? He died 2,500 years ago. So I hate to break it to you, but he can't help you much. Right? If you came here looking for him to save you or fix you or heal you, you're going to be looking for a very long time, right? So the idea in taking refuge in the Buddha, we take refuge in what's called bodhicitta, which is Buddha nature. The idea that the Buddha was a human, as are we. The Buddha woke up, he ate, slept, went to the bathroom, probably most of those things better than most of the people in this room, but he still did all of those things just like we do. And he figured out how to end his suffering. So for me, as a practitioner, that's very liberating to know that I don't need anybody else to end my suffering. Nobody else created my suffering, therefore nobody else can end it. I created all of my suffering, therefore I can end all of my suffering. So to me, that's very inspiring. So we take refuge in bodhicitta, Buddha nature. The second one is the Dharma. You'll see D with a capital D and a small d. Very often, capital D is just the teachings of the Buddha. So what he taught when he spoke for 45 years. He awakened when he was 35, right? And then he roamed for 45 years and he taught. And those eventually got written down into what's called sutras. The word sutra means thread. So it's just a thread of these teachings. As I alluded to earlier, they say in essence that he said the same thing 84,000 different ways for 45 years. So the D, small d, Dharma is just true nature of reality. And this is interesting because, what's your name? The new guy taking all the notes.
Daniel.
Daniel, yeah. Daniel, when you look throughout your day today, whose eyes do you see the day through?
Mine.
Yours. Is it possible to see through anybody else's eyes?
Not really.
Not really, right? The reality is ultimate truth, ultimate reality, the Dharma, ultimate truth, is beyond your perception. Because how can anything be exactly the same when you have 1,000 different people looking at it? Right? It is what we perceive it to be. And the practice is to understand that it's not about our perception being right or wrong or good or bad. It helps to know that every single person has a different perception of reality. That makes sense? But because you've been in an argument, Daniel?
Yeah.
Yeah? So when you were in an argument, do you think you were right?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. Well, I appreciate the honesty, right? Sometimes we know we're wrong and we argue anyways just to win the argument, right? I don't know about you, but that was my life, half my life, yeah. Or I argue thinking I'm right, and then I realize, oh shit, I'm wrong. But then I keep arguing just because I want to win the argument, you know? It's like I'm wrong, but I won the argument, so I'm 1-1. So when we're in this argument and we think we're right, what do you think the other person thinks? They think they're what? They're also right. So ultimate reality is that we all live our lives through our own lens, our own perception. And we tend to think that our view is most what?
Correct.
Well, yeah, most correct and most important.
Yeah.
You know? And then the third one to your question is the Sangha. Sangha is community.
How do you spell
Sangha. And at the time of the Buddha, the Sangha was initially just the Buddha and the monks. And then they added nuns, and so you had the nuns, which are the women. And then you had kind of the larger Sangha, which was the lay people as well. Fast forward to today, a group of people coming together in a Buddhist place, looking at meditation, Buddhist practice. This tends to be the Sangha, referred to as the Sangha. People to challenge you, question you, hold you accountable, inspire you, motivate you, piss you off, all those things. I tend to look at Sanghas as beyond just what we would look at like a spiritual community, but think of traffic. Next time you're stuck in traffic, if you think of that as your Sangha, you might treat them better. You know, I mean, would you show up here on a Saturday morning and start screaming and yelling and flipping anybody off in here? Probably not, right? But do you know who the people are that are cutting you off on the freeway? these same people. I hate to break it to you, but these are the ones that cut you off and slow you down and get in your way in a grocery store and don't give you the customer service the way you want it and all those things. That's these people. That's why we're here. So if we tend to see every community we're in as a sangha, maybe we would treat them better. So, does that help? Yeah.
Buddha talk about love.
Say again, how does Buddha talk about love?
Yeah.
Oh, that's important. You should love. He's a big fan of love. Yeah. The entire body of Buddhist teachings is based on what we would call endless compassion, which is rooted in absolute love. But love in a very non-controlling way. You two together? Okay, all right. Well, that was awkward, right? I just wanted to know which way I was going with this, right? So, you ever been in love and tried to control the person? Yeah. You ever been in love and not tried to control the person? Yeah. So choose the path that doesn't try to control them. That's true love, true compassion, true wisdom, right? Ever been in love and expected them to be a certain way and wanted them to be a certain way and tried to manipulate and trick them into being a certain way? Don't do that. Right? So that would not be love, that would be control. That would be fear, that would be worries, that would be insecurities, that would be an effort to kind of project your own madness onto somebody else. So love is critical. But to also understand that from the Buddhist teachings, we're looking at love in ways where we love all beings, all directions, all times, all space equally. Which is very difficult. And to love without, in Buddhism there's a term non-attachment, but to love without attachment, not detached. Detached, often you'll hear people say detached or unattached. Non-attachment isn't like a cutting off of, it's not severing. Non-attachment in Buddhist teachings is actually ultimate love and compassion where you're not attached to who and how they are. Now we didn't say a romantic relationship, maybe they're not being towards us the way we want, so we can choose to not be in that relationship. But the practice is to not expect them to be a certain way because they're going to be who and how they are. Now again, that doesn't mean we have to stay in that dynamic. But non-attachment is absolute love. And the Buddha was a big fan of that. Yeah. There was a group years ago, another religious group, that they had to observe, thank God, other religions. And it was a high school group. And the person asked a question very specifically, and they said, we've learned in Buddhism from our high school that because of detachment, Buddhists can't love their mothers, right? So I'm glad I was able to correct their understanding of what non-attachment is. And often I think a great example, as challenging as it may be, is, family members, say children, for example, that you love them, but they're going to go on their own at some point, regardless of how much we try to, when they're 3, we probably have a little more control over them, right? Maybe not. When they're 6 months, maybe, I don't know. But when they're 17, we love them regardless of the choices they make, even though, as we know, when we were 17, we probably didn't make the wisest choices. So, does that help? Yeah. Love's a good thing. Yeah.
Would it be fair to say not to have expectations because it only lead to resentment and just be satisfied with the situation and see what it is?
I think that, so the question was, would it be fair to say to not have expectations because they only lead to resentment and just to be okay with things as they are? The only thing that kind of, how can I say this? The reason I don't love that kind of, the way you ask that question is, it sounds to me, I understand, I think, where you're going with that, is that letting go, surrendering expectations is a healthy way to live. But it almost sounds like if you're so focused on there being resentments, then are you really okay with how things are? So to abandon expectations because you don't want resentments, I don't think is the reason we should abandon expectations. I think the reason to abandon expectations is because we love and appreciate people for who and how they are, not because we want to make sure that things go our way. Because when they don't go our way, that's where resentments kick in, right? So we're like, well, F it, I'm just going to abandon expectations and I'll have no resentments. But if we actually truly drop expectations, that means things will still go differently from how we want them to, but without the resentment. You see the slight difference there, at least in the way you asked it? That's how I heard it.
Yeah.
You're kind of working on it to where resentments don't even come into play. It's not even an issue. Again, a lot easier said than done. But my teacher, she always said, practice not expecting anything from anyone ever. And yes, the end result of that is you won't have resentments, you won't have disappointments, you won't have frustrations. But do it because it's a beautiful way to live, not just because you're afraid of resentment. Yeah. Not easy, but I see a hand in the back. Yeah.
How do you practice love and compassion towards yourself?
Yeah.
Even when the story is anger at yourself.
So the question was, how do you practice love and compassion towards yourself? That's very difficult. That's the reason you asked that question. It's also what in my experience of all the years of doing this, I think is the hardest thing for people to do. It's what actually drove most people to places like this. And it gets often neglected and overlooked. People get into Buddhist stuff and they're like, oh, compassion, giving, I'm going to go help and save the world. And yet they still hate themselves. And again, I'm just echoing everything you already know. I haven't even addressed your question yet, but I just want to drive home how obvious it is to me that that's a huge issue. So the question of how, right? How do you do this? How do you practice love and compassion towards yourself? Begin to understand that, or my suggestion is to begin to understand gratitude for everything you've gone through to get to this point. The fact that you're sitting here on a Saturday morning at 11 o'clock means you do have some love and compassion for yourself. Because if you didn't, you wouldn't be giving you this time, this gift. I mean, this is a gift. Sangha is a gift. It truly is, that you are giving yourself. People don't realize that. For some reason, people are actually I know many reasons why, but I'll just say this. For some reason, people are so hard on themselves. Have you ever just paused throughout your day 3, 4, 5 times a day? Do you remember the old Saturday Night Live Stuart Smalley that says, gosh darn it, you're good enough, you're smart enough, and people like you. So stop every once in a while. Stop trying to save the planet and save the world and fight every cause, and realize that you're a decent human being who's gone through a ton of shit. And you're okay. You're not a terrible person. I saw this meme a long time ago, which made so much sense to me, that said something about how harsh people are and critical they are towards themselves. That people they talk so much harsher to themselves than they do others. So this idea of think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds, which you've heard a million times, right? They should put that on a t-shirt. Right? Think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds. It's right in front of you, right? Try that towards yourself. When you go home today, tell yourself 5 good thoughts about yourself. Think good thoughts towards yourself. Then say 5 good things towards yourself. And then do 5 good things towards yourself. Begin to take care of yourself. Start there. And if you can start applying the thinking good thoughts, speaking good words, doing good deeds towards yourself, you might begin to appreciate yourself for all you've gone through to get to this point. And you might stop hating yourself because you're not nearly as bad as you tell yourself you are. Does that make sense? Yeah. Maybe the think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds should be on the front of the shirt so you could see it in the mirror. Or just wear it backwards. Yeah, kindness towards self, love towards self, compassion towards self. Stop hating yourself. Yeah. Easier said than done, as all this is, but that's why we call it a practice. It's not a quick fix. It's not 6 weeks and you're done. It is a lifelong practice of doing this stuff. And it just repeats every single day. Over and over and over again. Yeah.
Just to add, it also makes it easier to take care of other people if you take care of yourself. It's the oxygen mask everyone thing.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah, just to share louder what you said, it makes it easier to take care of others if you take care of yourself first. It's, absolutely the oxygen mask. You must put it on yourself first before others, because if you can't breathe and you're not healthy and you don't take care of you, you will burn out and die. And then you can't take care of anybody. So 100% self-compassion. But with things that, and this is not to do with what you said, just self-compassion with things that actually matter. Not what our culture and society tells you self-compassion is, right? But actually kindness towards yourself. Not what our society tends to tell you, which is everything is wrong with you and how to fix you. But actually believing, hey, maybe there isn't anything wrong with me. Maybe the billions of dollars of advertising are there just to tell me something's wrong with me so I can consume. Maybe you're just fine how you are. What else? Yeah.
I'm glad that she asked the question about self-compassion because it sort of combines my question, which is about love and self-compassion, love of others. It feels like in your responses there's an interstitial space between loving yourself and also having people in your life and having no expectations for them. That interstitial space is filled with parent-child relationships, spouses, close best friends, where if you aren't getting what you need, having no expectations means you don't get what you need anymore. And being able to advocate for yourself and tell somebody honestly, this is what I'm seeing, you say it with compassion, but it seems like you're acting out, or this is what I need. Where does maybe a more modern idea of going to couples therapy or being more, not forceful, but being more honest about what you need and what a healthy relationship is?
Sure.
Where does that fall?
Yeah, so the question in essence around what I'm hearing you say is, to paraphrase, where is that balance, where is that, in Buddhism we would call it that middle path, on making sure that in relationships of any sort, whether it's romantic relationships, family relationships, friendships, where do we make sure that we're not just silent and dropping expectations and allowing others to treat us like crap, but that we're actually expressing desires and wants and needs from a family member or partner or something like that, right? Is that a fair paraphrase? Yeah. So those things are important. I'm not suggesting from what I said that we just remain silent and become a doormat and allow people to treat us like crap. And that was my kind of reference very quickly to the fact that, hey, if we don't like the way we're being treated, that doesn't mean we have to stay in a situation. And part of that comes from communication, right? In relationships, it's not the Buddhist thing. Somebody years ago, they were all into Buddhism and they would get into a fight and their partner would always get mad at them because they would say, oh, I'm Buddhist, I don't argue. That didn't go over well, right? Sometimes just this kind of apathy is not healthy. So finding a balance to where, yes, you can express what your, for lack of a better word, needs are in a relationship, but understand that just because you express that doesn't mean it's going to be met. And when it's not met, then we have a choice of what to do. But yes, if there are conflicts in any relationship whatsoever, I don't want to say the only way, but one of the best ways to solve that conflict is through honest, open dialogue and communication about how we're feeling and where we feel neglected or abused or ignored or not heard or not seen. So expressing those things is very important. And then realizing that once we've expressed that, it's then out of our hands. I mean, we can continue to express it. But ultimately, the choices of others' treatment towards us is ultimately up to them. And that's where I think then you bring back in this, hey, I've expressed what I want and need from this relationship if it's going to work. And then you're going to see how you respond to their response to that. And if at any point in time, which I say this almost every time, toxic, abusive, unhealthy, there's no Buddhist teachings that says if you're in a toxic, unhealthy, abusive relationship that you just like, oh, I'm Buddhist, that's okay, you can treat me like crap. No, get out. Right? So finding that balance and having a voice is absolutely critical for communication.
I think the more you know about yourself, the more you can reflect that to others.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a big, what he said was the more you know about yourself, the more you can reflect that to others. And that's a key piece to this, is that very often when we're wanting something from someone else or expecting something from someone else, it's almost this, I often joke and I say, the whole Tom Cruise, you complete me, ruined it for generations of people, because we're often running around searching for someone else to complete us, as if we need completion. But if we are very genuinely, authentically, honestly looking at our own heart and mind, and we can express that very genuinely, then we can be kind of met where we're at. But very often, and again, I'm sure many of us in this room can relate to this, we're in pain, we're hurting, we're broken, and all of a sudden we're in a fight with someone we love and we can't figure out why. But all of a sudden we just dumped all of our crap onto them, and then we're not sure why they're mad at us, right? So reflecting on self is really important in what we bring into any relationship, really. Because when we're mad and we're angry and we hate ourselves, we don't tend to communicate too well, right? At least not too skillfully. So allow the self to kind of settle and calm and be honest. Hey, this is how I'm hurting. This is where I'm hurting. This is the pain I'm feeling. This is what I'm, experiencing. Having that open communication is important on any level of any relationship. Yeah.
So speaking of relationships, but I'm going to say the workplace where you really can't leave if it's not working out.
You can.
Right, but I mean in the moment.
No, you still can.
Okay.
But go ahead.
Never mind. So I'm just thinking about the expectation, and what I found with certain people at times is that I do begin to expect them to behave in a way that, riles up others. And is that an expectation that I should also let go of? Because, I feel like it's kind of like you feel like, okay, I know this situation now. Should I still practice releasing that expectation?
When you said expecting them to rile meaning like you're expecting them to cause problems?
Well, just expecting that dynamic is going to create some chaos in the workplace, because it does all the time.
Yeah.
But should I release that?
I mean, I can't. Well, let me back up. My response is, I guess you can. I mean, unless you're like literally tied to a chair at your desk, we all can choose to leave anything we want, anytime we want. I want to be very clear.
Right.
We have a lot of asterisks that we tie to that says, well, if I left the job, I wouldn't have the money. If I wouldn't have the money, I wouldn't be able to afford my trips and my fancy stuff, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So we have rules that we put into place, but that's why I say that we could literally get up and leave anything we want, anytime.
Okay.
We might not, but we can. The second thing around your question is that I just, as a practice, I don't find it. I mean, common sense tells us that yes, there are certain scenarios where, you can maybe predict what's going to happen, right? If you have an office of 8 and the 8 people don't like each other and you bring an office meeting together, probably going to be conflict and chaos. So there are ways to have an idea of what, but for me, the practice of being present to your question, yes, is to abandon all of those expectations, because maybe that expectation you're bringing in is actually like causing that to happen. But I think it's more away from a specific scenario and just in general, the practice of being present, and in Zen practice we call it beginner's mind, is to going into every experience, every moment, every opportunity, as if we've never been there before. That's what the beginner's mind is. So the beginner's mind says, I'm fully present with this experience because I've never been here before, and I don't know what's going to happen. And very often we have these kind of preconceived ideas or expectations in our mind. I mean, if you can't swim, don't jump in a pool. Don't say, well, beginner's mind says I'm going to see if I can swim. So there's logic and common sense that comes into play. If you can't swim, don't jump in a pool. I just think beginner's mind can be very beneficial in many areas of our lives, especially when it comes to, anyone have a family member that's been pissing them off for 30 years, right? So when you show up, you're already like it's there, game on. There's just no other possibility of anything happening other than that. So you've created no possibility for anything other than what you're bringing into that situation. That would not be beginner's mind. Beginner's mind is showing up as if you've never been there before and just seeing maybe something different will happen. Maybe. So yeah, and then we'll close.
Just one thing, I've worked in corporate America for a long time. There are some people who create a hostile work environment and are unwilling to change. And in that case, it is okay to, if the person won't change, expect them and make them leave.
Well, again, I'm not going to tell people what's okay for anyone to do. I'm not going to sit here and tell people it's okay to expect them to leave or to be a certain way. Buddhist teachings are Buddhist teachings, regardless of corporate America, regardless of all that stuff. We don't shift what the teachings are, right? Beginner's mind is beginner's mind. So I would revisit that maybe you're stuck, possibly.
Could be.
You never know. I just know that I would never want to be put into a box. I mean, you've all been putting me in a box for years thinking I'm nice. I'm telling you I'm an asshole, nobody believes me. So, Yeah. Well, you might now, but so we're going to join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most. All right, a few quick announcements before y'all head out. Thanks for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma Bum. We opened up this temple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students, we're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. So every night we have different practices going on led by different people from different Buddhist traditions. Every Thursday, 4:30, we do a food redistribution program. I still think it's one of the best things around here. We prepare gourmet vegetarian meals, also known as peanut butter and jelly, and we feed people who sleep on the street. So anytime you think your life sucks and you lack gratitude for all you have, go feed people who sleep on the sidewalk, and it tends to put things into perspective. First Saturday of the month, we had it this morning, so appreciate you all coming in silently and actually observing the sign that said don't go downstairs. Half day of silence, so if you've never done 4 hours of silence, you'll probably survive. It's a really wonderful practice. If 20 minutes of silence is absolute torture for you, then I strongly recommend doing it for 4 hours. So that's the first Saturday of the month. Otherwise, I don't think anything out of the ordinary. Buddha for you is downstairs. If you need anything, Maggie's there. If anybody wants to stick around and clean up outside or anything like that, feel free. So we appreciate you being here. Be safe, be well, and we'll see you soon.